All right, back on it, back at it again. So as we've been going over Path of Exile 2, we are at the 4 month mark with 0.2.0, which is the release of the Huntress, and a lot of other content that was both good and bad in regards to finishing the game. So when we look at, or when we look back at the development process for Path of Exile 2, we have to keep in mind there was a couple ongoing conversations at the time, both internally and then, externally, from the development studio that were pretty clear that they were having some struggles. They were having some issues, balancing PoE 1, its development, and PoE 2, and the ways in which they were kind of like, really focusing on this one for quite a while and then had to kind of dial that back to focus on this and then kind of split the difference and how to, maintain focus, on both games at the same time was difficult. And we could also remember that there was a philosophy shift. So, in the initial conversations surrounding PoE 2, we saw a lot of interviews, lots of conversations that essentially, were looking at the update cycle, right? So we had 0.1 launch of the game, and then we had lots of little iterations, lots of updates. Following this, and the, resounding, I guess not necessarily backlash, maybe not criticism, but just kind of feedback in general, they would shift things over the course of the last 18 months to a less frequent update cycle. In conjunction with PoE 1, they would shift from doing lots of little updates to, bigger changes over longer periods of time. And so that is what we're going to see now moving forward with the progress from 0.2 onwards. We're going to begin to see the various aspects of the way the development shifted over the course of the game. So the natural progression went in a positive direction, away from consistent, tiny little, vegetable changes to more meat and potato changes. That's a steak, by the way. The improvements there cannot be understated, especially because when we look at the life of the game from where it started to where we are now and where we would like to be at 1.0. This first part was a lot of bug fixes. And naturally, as those fixes got resolved, there would be, like the height of the bug fixes was right at the beginning, right? And then it kind of tapered off as time went on. And so when we look at these things, these updates, these patches, these changes to the games, functions and characteristics and various aspects, the content, we have to keep that in mind because there are going to be, some natural, differences, right? The current state of the game is at such a different point than where it started. Priorities are different, focus is different, philosophy is different. There's a lot to take into account there. And so, as we continue forward here, I just wanted to keep that in mind. So, first and foremost, we are at the post of 0.2, which I gave a bad rating overall. Now, you could argue this was a great update. This was a fantastic change. This was, A plus. I would say overall, you're getting at best maybe a C minus. In our current education system, if you do zero work in many schools in America, you get a 50%. Like, you don't turn in the assignment, And so for me, if our 50% is a zero, your 75% is a failure. That's just, in my opinion, a lot of the good changes here were very simple, very straightforward, and cut and dry, right? Either you added content or you wasted your time. As we have discussed, most, if not all, of the waste of time came in the form of lots of balance changes, right, to an incomplete game. And we know the progress towards 1.0 has been arduous and long, and there has been, a lot of changes, as we just discussed, with how this game was developed. So this, to me, was a disappointment in a lot of ways. It indicated a consistent, lack of focus and lack of priority on finishing the game. And at this stage, as discussed, we are focusing on, the vegetables, not the meat and potatoes. Because we did get a new playable class, but we only got one. We did get a new weapon category. Bucklers and spears to go with that new class. We didn't get a new active story play. We didn't get a whole lot of content. And at this rate, if we look at 1.0 to 0.2.0, and we have, 5 classes and associated weapons and 3 acts of the story left, then we're going to need another, 20 months to get the rest. At this rate, right? And that is why the philosophy and the priorities naturally adjusted, because that was the projected understanding, right? GGG never came out and said, hey, we're going to take 5 years to finish this game, right? Or 2 years or whatever it is. And not to mention the story acts, and not to mention all the other, conversations around it. Now, eventually they did, essentially say, hey, we're going to take 2 years to get this game done, just naturally, right? But the initial conversation was, very much like, hey, why are we, focusing on looking at balancing changes in a game that isn't finished? At least that's where my head was been at for a long time now. So we got some hot fixes. Let's go over it, and we will take our time. And I also want to mention, at that rate, at that conversion rate of 4 months to new, per new thing, we didn't get that, right? 0.3, I'm getting ahead of myself here, it didn't come with the druid. They had to cut that, right? So instead of 4 months, it became 8 months. And then at 0.4, we got the druid. So, your time frame here not only was consistent, but it also incorporated an element of revisionist failure. So we just need to keep this in mind, looking at these updates, looking at where these changes and priorities were placed. The hot fixes, generally speaking, good news, right? We have client investigations, we have crash fixes. Let's just copy all of this stuff here. Client crashes, fixing bugs, fixing issues, more bug fixes. That'll change some stuff. All unique monsters have less life, tapering. See, this to me, that's a problem. We're gonna address that in a second here. But let's just copy all this down, throw it in bug fixes, and then see what we got. So I'm working our way backwards here. We're gonna get that. We're gonna get you. We're going to get that's that one, and that one, and then that one, and then I think this is the last one here. Okay, so relatively speaking, all these are good, except for, and unfortunately we have to consider this, these two. These are going to go in general changes, and for the life of me, I do not know why they did this. We have reducing life from the rogue exiles. This is a balancing change. They're adjusting ailment thresholds. I can't begin to understand why this would happen. Actually, you know what? This isn't that. This is one of these. Okay. So you just launched a 0.2. We are moving into the hotfix phase right before the first patch after the major update, right? Because 0.2b is coming, and we are in the day or two following up, and you are still messing with stuff. Most of these are good. The 0.2 hotfix 6 is an unfortunate fumble in my opinion. Okay, really straightforward, really simple stuff. We are trying to finish the game, or at least we would hope that. Instead of that, we are tweaking rogue exile health. Okay, let's take a look at the beta patch for 0.2. We got some general changes. Let's take a look at it. All non-unique monsters have less life. Why? So this was a hotfix re-update, re-implementation. I guess they might have started that in the hotfix and then they actually implemented it here. This is on the 5th, so it occurred the same day. I guess they're just doubling up. I'm not going to do that, so we're just gonna call that already addressed and move right along. They're changing this. This is a life regeneration monster modifier on, I'm assuming this is, I do not care. Finish the game. I don't consider that to be a finishing the game move. I consider that to be a balancing change. You already had this monster modifier. I don't care what level it appears at. If the game isn't done, we're still wasting time. Tempest spells combo required to use has been reduced from 10 to 4. I really can't imagine why these changes were so important that you did this. I would rather have them do nothing. I would rather have them not changed anything at all, and us to have gotten another playable class at this time, right? Like, if every update, 0.2, imagine this, it came with 2 classes. Crazy, huh? That's diabolical to think about. But, they did not have to make all curse gems have a higher growth radius per level, or curse skill gems, excuse me, and adjust from 2.1 meters to 3.1. What on God's green earth? Why? We don't have a finished game yet. What? So these things, this is some monster, this is some skill. I'm gonna move this into player and skill. And I copy and paste. Cool. Then we're gonna delete. And from player and skill, we are gonna say this is a monster change. Okay. So that to me, that was a colossal waste of time. You made the patch a couple days ago, and you are now immediately wasting time. Alrighty, and with that, we have come to the end of the video. Like the video or dislike it. If you agree or disagree, let me know why in the comments. This video is going to take quite a while to finish, and will be definitely broken up into many parts. So make sure to check out the other ones if you haven't already. I will theoretically be streaming at some point. Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, Aramorian signing off.